I wonder what smartphone is Elon using.
He's like, I'm just gonna put a chip in your brain, and if you want to communicate, to
You are
somebody
my
else, you
smartphone.
can.
You are my smartphone.
Like, you won't need to dial anything. You won't need to text somebody. Whatever somebody wants to say to you, it's gonna show up in your brain.
Hey Mark, I am so excited to have a chat with you.
Hi. Hi, Mark. I'm fine, thanks. I was talking with one of the person in charge of that community, and he told us, "Hey, I am going to leave this community because I go to a new company." And I was asking him, "What company?" Ah, it's Realme. In that moment, they were presenting or almost presenting the X2 Pro.
I actually joined Realme in the month of January in 2019. After that, I started exploring about Realme. Realme community has just launched after that.
If I compare with the previous one, the difference are striking, you know. And it's common that over time, smoothness is lost in general.
I was using Realme GT before shifting to Realme GT Neo 2. It impressed me so much that I completely shifted to Realme GT Neo 2. Speed is everything, from scrolling on social media feed to playing games.
The speed in the refresh rate. With screens like the one on the GT Neo 2, the movement of the listing is super smooth.
Firstly, it's charging speed.
The charging speed
Secondly, a fast display.
and the screen refresh. I expect an evolution of the current Neo, but maintaining precisely that speed in any section.
The new thing I'm looking forward to the next generation is the fast charging speed. Secondly, display, maybe 2K this time. Thirdly, a premium mid-range flagship processor. New speed awakens makes me super excited about what they are going to deliver on this device. I am looking forward to testing the limit of its speed.
For me, it's a direct message that the Neo range is destined to be faster and faster in every way.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the intro?
No.
You want me to do the
No.
intro?
No,
Okay.
I'm
All right.
shy.
Here we go. Okay. Hello and welcome back to Real Talk, the podcast by Real Me. My name is Mark.
Hey guys, I'm Rose.
Hey, I'm JJ.
And what are we going to be talking about today, JJ?
Talk about smartphone.
What about
I'm
Okay.
just joking.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
performance.
Performance? And
Yeah.
then what kind of aspect of performance specifically?
We can talk about speed for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to be talking about speed and performance, how speed is an important aspect of performance in honor of the fact that our GT Neo 3 is going to be coming out shortly. So we're just kind of getting excited about that, but we're also going to have a very general discussion on our expectations of the performance of our phone and also what kind of the way that we use our phone, right?
Yep.
So I think we can kind of jump straight into our first talking point, which is how do we use our smartphone and do we demand performance from it?
So basically, for me, I'm not really a gamer at all. Majority of the time when I use my phone is for checking social media and taking pictures and also checking videos sometimes. But I kind of have a not super good user habit because I'm running a lot of applications at the same time, and maybe that's why sometimes my phone gets slow a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You got a lot of apps running in the background.
Yes,
Okay.
I probably clean them like once 2 or 3 weeks. I
Oh
guess.
my gosh.
Yeah.
I feel like I clean them maybe a couple times a day.
Really?
Yeah. How about you?
Me? I wouldn't call myself a power user,
Mm.
but I will call myself a heavy user. You know, I spend
Mm.
I don't know, like at least I just received a notification that my screen on time went up by 7% yesterday
From what to what?
from previous week.
Yeah.
So every
But what is your screen time? What was the base screen time?
base screen time is like 4 hours,
Okay. Pretty
which is okay because we use laptop but I still use my smartphone a lot for
I
work.
thought you
Mhm.
would say 8 hours or something.
8
Yeah.
hour? No,
It's like
I
12
can't,
hours a day.
I can't do my work
Yeah.
on a smartphone for 8 hours. But yeah, I think I'll consider. That's why I said that I don't consider myself a power user, but a
Mm.
heavy user.
Mhm.
So mostly what I do on my phone is replying messages. Get into my messengers, and I actually use a lot. Use my phone. Use the camera application a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I think yeah, mostly camera. Other than that, I don't really have a lot of demand.
Do you use like photo editing software, anything like that on your phone?
Yeah, I use Lightroom,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty resource intensive. But I try not to use it on the phone because
see.
it's harder to manipulate my images.
Yeah,
So usually I just do it on my computer.
I see.
How about you?
So it's like I play games, but they're not like the gamer games. They're like geeky games. Like I like to play chess
Okay.
on my phone. I like to do daily crossword puzzles.
Oh.
I feel like I'm an old man.
Probably
in
the game you play can play on Windows 95.
Yeah, exactly. Like it doesn't need to be a smartphone in 2022 in order for me to play that game. But I would say what I also do, I watch like lots of YouTube and stuff like that. I'm trying to manage my Twitter account, so I'm on social media a little bit. But I wouldn't say that I'm an intensive user at all. Because yeah, like if I want to play games, like actual video games, I'm usually using my PS5. I'm not usually using my mobile because I like the feeling of like a controller in my hand. But yeah, I would say like I'm not somebody who really tests like the limits of my phone. For some reason, I feel like the most power intensive app that I use is like ESPN because for whatever reason, like the connection to that app is not super stable. So I'm always like closing out apps and things like that to try to make sure that nothing's affecting the connectivity for that one. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. But I also am kind of curious, like as somebody who, doesn't use their phone super heavy or super intensely. Maybe you can explain to us when people do use their phone, like for gaming or things like that, where they're really getting everything out of their phone. What's happening in the phone? What's allowing that type of performance to exist and run smoothly?
I think there are a lot of things going on in there. Mainly is on the chipset. I think a lot of brands these days, when they launch a new smartphone, especially flagship, they tend to talk a lot about the camera, how great the camera is, that can replace your mirrorless camera, but they don't really spend a lot of time talking about chipset, performance, because these are boring stuff, and yeah, and I think personally, I think while most manufacturers they use similar chipsets, but not all tuning and configuration are made equal. So, like for example, for GT2, just for GT2 Pro as an example, we spend a lot of time, tuning the Snapdragon Gen 8 one, combined with our stainless steel cooling system Max. So that is something that we don't just put in a chipset in there and just hope for the best. We put in a lot of resources into it to make sure that you are able to get the most out of your chipsets. And especially when you're playing games, specifically actually not just CPU, but it uses a lot of GPU and also your RAM.
Yeah.
Right. You don't actually run a game from your hard disk or SSD for the matter. It actually runs from the RAM. So this is why that we put in 12 GB of RAM, and also we use our dynamic RAM expansion technology to utilize your internal storage and then convert it to virtual RAM so that you can have more RAMs. So more RAM is good. That's because you can run resource intensive app while not killing the rest of your app in the background. So when you switch about PM back, your Twitter is still running.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then when your Twitter is done, when you swipe back to your game is still at a state that it should be, rather than it got flashed out and then you have to restart the game, or you have to reload it. Sometimes it doesn't pause there. Sometimes it just restart. Yeah. Because it doesn't have enough RAM to run the game in the background.
Yeah, enough memory on hand to be able to.
Yeah, and another thing is, especially when you are running a intensive resource app, like say your Genshin Impact or even your Lightroom, or those graphically and CPU demanding apps, they usually hits up a lot. So this is why having a great cooling system is paramount. And that is also the very reason why we spend so much time in improving our cooling system generation by generation. And I think a lot of times smartphone manufacturer don't get enough credit for doing this, because this is I think also because a lot of tech reviewers and influencer, they are educating people that mid-range smartphone is good enough. While this is true, cheaper smartphones are getting better, and better smartphones are getting cheaper.
Exactly.
But I think there's still a place for flagship processor or chipsets, mainly for the the GPU performance, the AI performance. We do, while we don't do a lot of calculation on like math calculation on the phone, but especially even say Rose uses her camera, it actually uses a lot of AI calculation. I mean, you don't feel it, but it's there. And especially with say a mid-range processor, things get slower. Especially when you do your nightscape mode, where you need to stack multiple images together, etc. These are all very processor intensive applications.
And I think going back to kind of what you were talking about, the importance of cooling systems, people have the expectation that they can be performing close to as well as they do on a computer on their smartphone. And computers have the luxury of having lots of space to include fans and things like that, lots of different ways to cool down the computer itself so that it doesn't overheat. Smartphones don't have that much room. And so being able to find better ways or more efficient ways of cooling off the phone when you have a processor that's really kind of active and running a lot of power, you need to be able to find a way to displace the heat away from the processor. And I think one of the things that we boast in our phones is that they have huge vapor chamber cooling systems, and the surface area is much larger than what you're going to find in other phones. And so there's more space for that heat to be dispersed.
Yes.
And so even though I don't know all the stuff that I probably should about, the differences between Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 versus 888 or 870 or all of those different things, I do know that with flagship processors, you need to find a place to put that heat. so that it doesn't overheat, it doesn't, it doesn't throttle and then slow down the performance because it's trying to protect itself.
Yeah, and adding to that heat dissipation, part, I think a lot of people might not know that if your phone doesn't have a great cooling system or solution, you might get a shorter battery life because your processor is working hard and the heat doesn't have anywhere to go, so it actually affects your battery life.
Yeah.
And also the longevity of it.
Yeah,
time.
and it's limiting the power capability of your processor too.
That's because it throttles when it hits up.
Exactly. It kind of reminds me, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I've driven a golf cart. Like, I used to work at a golf course, and
Are you a golfer?
I do like to golf. I wouldn't call myself a golfer because then that puts pressure on how I do.
Okay.
But like, I was driving a golf cart, and they put what's called a governor on the golf cart so that you don't go past a certain speed. And once you reach that speed, you can feel the power start to shut down, so that it slows you down. And I also remember my friend had a golf cart at his home, and they took off the governor, and you can actually go really fast, especially when you're going downhill, and it feels kind of crazy, and you can tip the golf cart. So obviously there are safety problems, but it just kind of reminds me, like, if you're using a phone and all of a sudden it's overheating, it's throttling, and then you can just feel the performance just go down in an effort to protect itself. It feels like driving a golf cart with a governor.
It's interesting because I used to think the cooling system only benefits the gamer the most because it offers a really better gaming experience. Because when I was using my phone, I never really experienced the extreme heat or something.
Yeah, it's true. The times that I've experienced heat with other phones is like when it's plugged in and I'm still using it. But I think that kind of goes into the charging architecture, right? Of like when we're using like our super dart or ultra dart charge or something like that, the architecture involved in that charger is able to determine the amount of power that's being released while we're charging the phone to avoid situations where the phone overheats.
Yeah. So I guess what we are going for here is, performance usually are something that is not fancy and in some sense is not a sexy marketing term. But it actually it does affect your experience when you don't have great performance. So it's kind of like that one of the things where you when it's there you don't appreciate it, but when it slows down it really frustrates you. Yeah.
I have
that's relatable.
It's true. I have lots of sports analogies because that's my background. But it reminds me of like when you're a quarterback for an American football team, you have to throw the ball. You don't notice it, but the people who are blocking for the quarterback, like when they're doing good, you don't notice them at all because the quarterback's able to throw the ball and nothing's wrong. But when they're really bad, you totally notice it because the quarterback just gets hit before they have a chance to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the other day when I was like trying, what phone was I trying? I think it was a pretty old phone, like I think like 3 years old. I can't remember what brand is that, but anyhow, I can't even open a Facebook app and it frustrates me. I'm like, it's just a Facebook app. Why is it taking such a long time? And also really relates to Rose, her something that she I think a comment that she made earlier on that she do a lot of like social media and it is data intensive, and this is why processor I think is still an important aspect of smartphone. And I think it is good that manufacturer like MediaTek or Qualcomm, they are still pushing the limits and performance of the next generation of chipsets, because if they don't do that, probably we still have like 4G modem inside of 5G. And I think a lot of people sort of neglect this, but I think we should give them the credit for it, because like what you say earlier on, that smartphone has a very limited space in there.
Mhm.
So I remember when I think it was like Snapdragon 845 or 835. I can't remember. But anyway, the one of the earlier 8 series, where the very first time when we have a 5G modem, but because the modem is so big that they can't incorporate it as part of the processor, they have to put a separate modem for 5G specifically.
Wow.
So that actually, it suck up more battery and it take up more space. So with fewer space in your smartphone means we have to like sacrifice other hardware, like I don't know, like battery capacity.
Yeah.
So as chipsets technology improves, we are able to shrink down the modem as part of the chipset to where we are today. And it's crazy. Like I think it was like 6 years ago when I joined the industry, or when I was like into smartphone, the average smartphone chipset size is I think like 12 nanometer. Back then was like crazy, and today we are heading to like 4 nanometer.
5, yeah.
Like, and I think TSMC are heading for like, I think they just said that they're going for like 2 nanometer in like 3-4.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I think there's a perks for that, because the smaller the chipset is, that means you have more space for other stuff, and also that means effectively you are more energy efficient than previous generation because it's smaller. So it generates lower heat, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
So it in turns improve your user experience without you noticing it, but it definitely like what I say, if the thing slows down, you definitely feel it. But when everything goes well, you don't appreciate. Like most people don't appreciate it.
At this rate, we're gonna have to have a new unit of measurement. We're not gonna be able to use nanometer anymore.
Yeah. What's after nano?
I don't know. They're gonna have to go into decimals, maybe.
Yeah.
What is after nano?
I'll check Google.
Yeah, that's something we didn't prepare for this discussion.
I'm pretty sure there's a specific word after nano.
Yeah, there is, but
Yeah,
I just don't know my Greek or Latin.
Yeah.
Wherever it comes from. Okay, so we're going to jump into our game portion, our other game portion, I guess, called Realdle. We've been doing this for a little while. It's a take on Wordle. And our GT Neo 3 has the theme of racing and a tribute to Racing Legend. So we're going to try to create our own new Racing Legend by who is the fastest person to solve the Realdle.
And he or she will be the legend.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then there will be a new legend every week, probably.
All right, let's do it.
Ready, go! Round 1.
All right. So it appears that for this week, I am the Racing Legend. Yeah. But
I think your everyday exercise actually helps.
yeah, I'm training for this, okay? I'm doing Sidordle, which is 16 Wordles at one time. So
listen to this.
yeah. I have a problem. Okay. It's being addicted to Wordle. Okay, but anyways, that was the show for today. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of time to have fun talking about performance. And JJ, when are we going to be back?
Next week.
We're going to be back next week.
Next week.
All right, so we'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.